Terry Rasmussen, the Chameleon Killer. Part 2. His final victim was family. A man without a name. Again. Last time, we uncovered the truth behind the barrels buried in the woods of New Hampshire. 4 victims, 2 barrels, no names for years, and 1 man, Terry Rasmussen, who'd lived half a dozen lives under different names and left devastation in each of them. He was a drifter, a manipulator, a killer. But above all, he was a man who never wanted to be found. And yet, through the persistence of cold case detectives and the accidental miracle of genetic genealogy, his mask finally cracked. Now we know his name. But we still don't know how many victims there really were, because the story wasn't over in Bear Brook. Terry Rasmussen didn't stop after 1981. In fact, that's where his next chapter began. This is the story of what happened after the barrels, of the girl he didn't kill, the woman he did, and the disturbing pattern that suggests his final victim wasn't just a stranger. She was family. The father and the girl. After disappearing from New Hampshire in the early 1980s, Terry Rasmussen resurfaced in California. Only this time, he wasn't Bob Evans. Now he was calling himself Curtis Kimball. He was driving an old car, had a scruffy beard, and in the passenger seat, a little girl. She was about 5 years old, blonde, quiet. He introduced her as his daughter. Neighbors in Scotts Valley said he kept to himself. Sometimes he worked odd jobs. Sometimes he disappeared for days. But always, the girl was with him. She didn't go to school, didn't play with other kids, didn't talk much. And the man calling himself Curtis Kimball? He didn't let her out of his sight. In 1985, he was arrested for driving under the influence and giving a false identity to police. He listed the girl as his dependent, said her name was Lisa. Child Protective Services stepped in. But before they could investigate further, Kimball skipped town. He left Lisa behind, alone, confused. She had no documents, no relatives. She kept telling the authorities one thing: "He's my daddy." But he wasn't. When police ran DNA tests, the truth unraveled fast. There was no biological relationship between them. She had been kidnapped, and whoever her mother was, she had vanished. This wasn't just a tragic custody case. It was something much, much darker. And Curtis Kimball? He disappeared again. But he wouldn't stay gone for long. Gordon Jensen and the Stolen Child. This time, it was 1986. New name, new state. Now he was Gordon Jensen, living in a trailer park in Cypress, California. And once again, Lisa was with him. Neighbors remembered the same uneasy routine. The man seemed secretive, protective, and strangely possessive of the little girl. He told people he was her uncle, said her mother had died, that he was just doing his best. But when someone finally asked for records, school registration, legal guardianship, anything, Jensen disappeared. Again. Police caught up with him shortly after and charged him with child abandonment and child endangerment. He pled guilty. And for a brief moment it seemed like justice had arrived. He was sentenced to 1 year in jail. He served less than 6 months. When released, he was put on parole and disappeared within days. Back then, law enforcement systems weren't interconnected like they are now. Different names, different states, different jurisdictions. It was all too easy to slip through the cracks. But there was a pattern. Each time Rasmussen changed names, a woman disappeared. A child was put in danger. And the man behind it all walked away clean. Lisa was placed in foster care again. She would grow up under yet another name, in another part of the country, haunted by memories she didn't fully understand. Meanwhile, the man who stole her life was building another one, this time with a new name, a new woman, and a new plan. Larry Vanner and the Woman in the Basement. It's the late 1990s. We're in Richmond, California, a city just north of Oakland. A woman named Eun-Soon Jun, a soft-spoken chemist with a quiet life, begins dating a man she met at a self-help group. His name? Larry Vanner. He's charming in that awkward, overly polite way, keeps a low profile, says he works with electronics. She tells friends he's sweet, maybe a little strange, but kind. Soon they're living together. She introduces him to her friends. He even attends dinner parties. No one thinks too much of the fact that he's older or that he refuses to talk about his past. But by mid-2002, Eun-Soon starts pulling away. She stops responding to emails, cancels plans, grows distant, like she's fading out of her own life. And then, she vanishes. Friends report her missing. Police visit the house, where Larry is still living. He gives vague answers, conflicting stories, but detectives feel something is off. They get a warrant, search the home, and in the basement, beneath piles of debris and layers of cat litter, they find a plastic container. Inside, Eun-Soon Jun's dismembered body. She had been bludgeoned to death, then meticulously wrapped in plastic, stored, sealed, hidden, like the others. Vanner is arrested for murder. At the station, he refuses to talk, won't explain who he really is, and under California law, he is booked as Larry Vanner. But fingerprints tell a different story. Police dig into his past and realize he had used multiple identities over the years. Curtis Kimball, Gordon Jensen, Bob Evans, now Larry Vanner. All different names, all the same man. And soon, they would learn his real name and the staggering number of people connected to his trail of lies. The DNA that changed everything. As police processed the crime scene in Eun-Soon Jun's basement, they knew they had a killer, but they didn't know who he was. He wouldn't say. He wouldn't cooperate. Just stared through the interrogation room with cold, dead eyes, like none of this mattered. But for the first time, they had more than just a false name. They had his fingerprints, his DNA. And when they ran it through the national databases, they hit a match. Curtis Kimball, alias used during the 1985 DUI. A man who'd abandoned a child and disappeared. Further digging revealed more names. Gordon Jensen, used while living in the trailer park. Bob Evans, the man who vanished with Denise Beaudin in 1981. Everywhere they looked, they found a new name and a new victim. But the most chilling piece? DNA from the Bear Brook barrels had already been uploaded to the system. And now that they had Rasmussen's real DNA, everything changed. One of the little girls in the second barrel, the one around 2 years old, was a biological match to him. She was his daughter. Let that sink in. This wasn't just a man who killed strangers. He had murdered his own child. And the adult woman in the first barrel, she wasn't a stranger either. Her name was Marlise Elizabeth Honeychurch, and she was the mother of 2 of the children found in the barrels. She had been dating Bob Evans, had introduced him to her family, had trusted him enough to let him into her life and the lives of her daughters. They were never seen again, until their remains were found in plastic barrels in the woods of New Hampshire. This case had started with a mystery in the forest, but now it was clear. Terry Rasmussen was no ordinary killer. He was a man who destroyed entire families from the inside. Denise Beaudin and the Vanishing Point. While police were unraveling Terry Rasmussen's web of aliases, another name surfaced, a name investigators had nearly forgotten. Denise Beaudin. She had been 23 years old when she vanished in 1981 from Manchester, New Hampshire. A young mother, newly in love, last seen with her boyfriend, a man calling himself Bob Evans. They had recently celebrated Thanksgiving with her family. 2 days later, they were gone. At first, her family assumed she had left voluntarily. She and Evans had money problems. Maybe they skipped town to start fresh. But as the months turned into years, no one heard from her. No letters, no calls, no sightings. And the baby girl she left with? She later resurfaced in California as Lisa. Investigators now believe Denise was murdered shortly after that Thanksgiving dinner. Her daughter was taken, and Terry Rasmussen, using the alias Bob Evans, kept the child as a prop, a disguise for domestic life, until he abandoned her. Denise's body has never been found, but the evidence is damning. The timeline, the relationship, the pattern. It fits too perfectly with Rasmussen's methods. He infiltrated lives. He erased women who trusted him and used their children as shields until they no longer served a purpose. The Beaudin case closed a massive gap in the timeline. It proved Rasmussen's pattern began earlier than anyone thought. Years before Bear Brook, before Yoon Soon Jun, before he was even on law enforcement's radar. Each decade, a new name, a new victim, the same man. But this wasn't the end of the revelations. Because while Lisa survived and Denise vanished, the unknown child in the second barrel still had no name. And that child, too, was Rasmussen's daughter. 2 women, 2 daughters, 2 families destroyed. How many more were out there? The unknown child. In the second barrel, alongside the biological daughter of Marlise Honeychurch, there was another child, a girl, estimated to be around 2 to 4 years old, dark hair, small frame, wrapped in plastic like the others. But this one? No one knew who she was. She didn't match any missing persons report. She wasn't related to Marlise. She wasn't related to the other 2 children. But DNA confirmed one chilling fact. She was the biological daughter of Terry Rasmussen. To this day, no one knows who her mother was. There are no records, no photos, no first birthday parties. No one ever came forward to say, "That was my daughter." And maybe that's the most terrifying part. Because this wasn't just another life Rasmussen erased. It was a life that never had a chance to become real. Who was she? Investigators have followed every lead, posted reconstructions online, appeared on national TV shows, searched records across every state where Rasmussen had lived or passed through. But nothing. No name, no face, no family. She's known only as the fourth victim of Bear Brook, a little girl whose only legacy is a place in a barrel and a spot on a crime scene diagram. And Rasmussen? He never spoke a word about her, never admitted she existed, never acknowledged her in custody, not once, even as he sat in prison. She was just gone, just like he wanted. Denise Beaudin and the Vanishing Point. In the second barrel, alongside the biological daughter of Marlise Honeychurch, there was another child, a girl, estimated to be around 2 to 4 years old. Dark hair, small frame, wrapped in plastic like the others. But this one? No one knew who she was. She didn't match any missing persons report. She wasn't related to Marlise. She wasn't related to the other 2 children. But DNA confirmed one chilling fact. She was the biological daughter of Terry Rasmussen. To this day, no one knows who her mother was. There are no records, no photos, no first birthday parties. No one ever came forward to say, "That was my daughter." And maybe that's the most terrifying part. Because this wasn't just another life Rasmussen erased. It was a life that never had a chance to become real. Who was she? Investigators have followed every lead, posted reconstructions online, appeared on national TV shows, searched records across every state where Rasmussen had lived or passed through. But nothing. No name, no face, no family. She's known only as the fourth victim of Bear Brook, a little girl whose only legacy is a place in a barrel and a spot on a crime scene diagram. And Rasmussen? He never spoke a word about her, never admitted she existed, never acknowledged her in custody, not once, even as he sat in prison. She was just gone, just like he wanted. The end of the road. By 2003, the man known as Larry Vanner was behind bars, convicted for the murder of Eun Soon Jun. He sat in a California prison, silent and smug. He refused to explain the inconsistencies in his past, refused to reveal his real identity. For years, he simply watched as detectives from multiple states tried to untangle his lies, like pulling thread from a decades-old tapestry woven in blood and deceit. Then, in 2010, without warning, Terry Rasmussen died. Lung cancer. No confession, no answers. Just like that, the key witness, the only man who truly knew the scope of the crimes, was gone. And the trail could have gone cold again. But this time, technology didn't let go. By 2017, fingerprint records from decades-old arrests in multiple states were finally connected. New forensic databases helped investigators match the fake names to one man. And with that came his military records, his social security number, his true birth certificate. Born December 23, 1943 in Denver, Colorado. He had served in the Navy, worked as an electrician, drifted across at least 5 states: California, Arizona, Texas, Ohio, New Hampshire. Everywhere he went, there were missing women, lost children, questions. His timeline, from the mid-1970s to the early 2000s, is littered with gaps, blank spaces that could be filled with unknown victims. And because he used so many aliases, many of those victims may never be found or even counted. When he died, he left no will, no next of kin, just a trail of trauma, buried bodies, and broken families. But he couldn't bury the truth forever, because in the end, it wasn't the law that exposed him. It was DNA, and the voices of the people he tried to silence.
His final victim was family. By the time authorities pieced together the full picture, one thing became unmistakably clear. Terry Rasmussen didn't just kill women. He built families, only to destroy them. Think about it. Marley's Honeychurch trusted him with her life and her children. He murdered them all. Denise Beaudin started a new life with him as a young mother. She vanished without a trace. Her child, Lisa, was taken and raised by the man who likely killed her. And the unknown child? His own daughter, murdered, sealed in a barrel, never spoken of again. It wasn't just murder. It was annihilation, an attempt to wipe entire family trees off the face of the earth. He weaponized identity. He used affection as camouflage. He created trust, only to twist it into something lethal, and he nearly got away with it. Had it not been for Lisa, the girl who lived, he might have stayed buried in a prison file known only as Larry Vanner. But Lisa's survival sparked the DNA trail. Her rescue led to the exposure of Bob Evans, Gordon Jensen, Curtis Kimball, and eventually the full story of Terry Rasmussen, a man who wore many faces but left behind one unmistakable legacy. Silence. The silence of the woods, the silence of a mother who never came home, the silence of a little girl whose name we still don't know. But in that silence, something else emerged. Justice. Because even if he never answered for all his crimes, even if there are still victims out there waiting to be found, his lies didn't last forever. DNA cracked his mask. Cold case detectives refused to let go. And the families he tried to erase, they're speaking now. Terry Rasmussen is gone, but his story still echoes. In every unsolved case, in every unidentified child, in every cold file collecting dust. How many more are out there like him? That's the question we're left with. And here, at the American Mysteries Archives, we're not done asking it. See you in the next case.
Subscribe for more chilling mysteries. Thanks for being here. See you in the next time.